Well, a very good morning from the White Hart in Lewes. Hopefully, the picture is just a little bit better today. We keep on creeping forward with that. Not the easiest of things to do in a hotel that was built 500 years ago and was designed to keep everything out. And now that you actually want something to come in, it proves a little bit more difficult than would appear. But we are doing our best, and I'm monitoring it there. It's not a great picture, but it's not a bad one either, so we'll motor with it. And a very good morning from Mirador Television at the White Hart Hotel in the centre of Lewes, and I hope that you will join us this morning at some stage. We don't expect you to join us for the whole show. We have two segments. One, we go for an hour in which we look at the news and rather more serious stuff. And then we have a free-for-all starting at 9:30 to 11:30, in which we have no idea what's going to happen. People wander in, people talk to us, people come in, and when we actually contact people. So all in all, it's a bit of fun. But it does help get the word out of what sort of town we are, who we are, what we're doing, and so on and so forth. So do feel free. If you're passing the White Hart, come in, express an opinion, give us some information, news about your event, or just tell us simply what you're doing. Two delightful ladies yesterday from Norway who had come here to do some walking, and they were going down to Rodmore. And the news I hear this morning is that the Abergavenny Arms, a pub of some considerable history, is closing, and that's very sad. But I suppose there's not much we can do about it. This is the age of closing pubs, and I suppose times change. People don't go to the pub quite as much as they used to. And so we have to put up with these things. Now, we have got a booster, but whether it's working or not, I have no idea. But we'll motor on, and certainly we've got various experts looking at the damn thing. The trouble with expertise is that it's sometimes so specific that it doesn't cover the ordinary problems that you've got. Anyway, it is the 12th day of the 5th month, which is May. Of the year 2022, and not an auspicious month yet, not an auspicious year so far. We've had all sorts of things from lockdown through to conflict in the Ukraine, cost of living, energy price rises, food shortages, you name it. We've had it. And if you actually had listed all the things from 2000 to 2020 and said, here are some of the things we had to put up with, you wouldn't have believed that, in fact, we had a lot of these all in this year, in this brief year of 2022, where we're only partway through the 5th month. In fact, not even partway through, we're doing about the 12th. So there we go. That's what it's all about. Let's take a look now at the newspaper headlines this morning. Poor cook, the poor can't cook, says an MP, and the UK signs a defence pact. So the Daily Mirror, of course, they always latch on to whatever a Conservative MP says, and one named Lee Anderson has commented and said the stories about the rising cost of living is that the poor can't cook. I would have said it was the other way around, actually. In fact, all the experts say it's the other way around. We did talk at one stage with a chef to see whether we could televise his book on cooking, his cookbook. We definitely came close to it, but just one or two things were a bit more difficult than we thought. But his book basically said that it is the young married up and coming who can't cook because mummy never taught her. And basically, a lot of them panic when they first meet the potential in-law, their husband's to-be's mother or parents, and they have to cook something, and they haven't the foggiest idea how to cook. So this guy probably is saying what everybody will say. Oh, that's dreadful. That's elitist, and so on and so forth. It's a bloody fact. They simply can't cook, and that's it. It's sad but true. So the MP's food banks slur. They're bound to make something of this. As somebody says something like that, it's all elitist. That's bullshit. I'm sorry, but there's so much applied by wokes and the chattering classes. Is you can't say anything. You can't say fart, and somebody hasn't got some hidden meaning in it. I mean, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. So, although that's the headline in the Mirror, I don't go along with the slur. It's not a slur. Okay. The fact of the matter is that some poor people, people of low income, let's put it this way, can't afford all these seasonings and so on. That wealthier people can afford. It's the way of life, unfortunately. Unless we want to change the whole economic structure of our country and indeed of the Western world, then we have to live with that. Some people have money and some people don't. I'm one of those that don't. I don't eat badly, but all in all, we really it is not a slur to say that people in limited means don't cook as well as those with extra means. But the fact is, talk to the cooking experts, and those with extra means aren't very good at it either, because they've been doing all sorts of other things than spending time in the kitchen with mummy. And mummy probably is of that generation where she didn't spend much time in the kitchen either with her mother, and they can't bloody cook. And so that headline and what this MP says is spot on. And if people want to make it elitist, they can. But I don't see it that way. I just see it as a fact. The fact is that we most of us can't cook and don't cook. And while we've got 1,000 cooking shows on television with indescribable dishes that look mucky, and I'm sure taste mucky, but everybody says they're absolutely marvelous and nobody is ever going to repeat, we still are a nation that can't cook. And the Metro picks it up. Can't cook, won't cook. And actually, Tesco do have some nice little vignette recipe things, only 2 or 3 minutes, if you go searching for them. And they are very helpful and really look at practical things. Can't cook, won't cook. That's the Metro saying. The Tories split over the cost of living plan. A policy debate is going on at the moment over whether the cost of living should be eased by extra spending, or whether we should have a windfall tax, or indeed ease tax burden itself. Difficult to say. Difficult to say. And the Tories can't make up their minds. One favours one group and one favours another. So there we go with the cost of living plan. The Daily Mail. Now Rishi warms to energy windfall tax plan. Everybody was against the idea of a windfall tax. A windfall tax being that it is a one-off tax on one-off profits. When an organization or a business or an enterprise makes huge amounts of money, then what happens is that we get a tax on that particular amount of money, which isn't a sustaining tax. It's not one that goes on from month to month or year to year. It's just on those particular profits. And the energy industry have made huge profits. So the suggestion is that there is a windfall tax plan put into place. But the energy companies say, no, hang on, we need all that money. We need it desperately to invest for the future. We've got to build nuclear plants, and we've got to build, and we've got to open up coal mines again, and so on. That's the ludicrous nature of it, isn't it? Is the moment we hit an energy problem, is we all go back to fossil fuels, which we keep saying that we're not going to have. So much for the common sense that pervades through our present life and our present leadership, and for that matter, our present citizenry, because we're all as bad as one another. Me. Yeah. Now I got him going. Right, but anyway, Rishi Sunak is warming towards a windfall tax plan so that he can put some more money back into the coffers, which have been depleted because of COVID. Right, the Daily Express, which is normally very supportive of the government, a desperate cry for help we cannot ignore. The grim reality of the cost of living rises are the focus of the Daily Express's front page, which is launching a campaign to cut bills for disabled families, featuring the story of a mother forced to choose between eating or keeping her daughter's life-saving machinery running. The paper's headline calls it a desperate cry for help and cannot ignore. Well, the fact of the matter is, of course, are we into Jenkins' ear? That's my favorite Jenkins' ear. Jenkins' ear war is when the British government actually went to war on behalf of an individual to revenge or avenge an English sea captain who had his ear cut off by the Spanish. And much is being said about governance, but mostly it's you look after the greater good, and sometimes that's at the cost of the lesser good. Is this an example? Has the newspaper, A Desperate Cry for Help, got it right? This lady undoubtedly is suffering. But if, in fact, we altered our approach and looked at every individual case of hardship, would we find that we would be doing stuff that, in the main, would not benefit the country or the people as a whole? Very difficult. It's always very difficult because the emotive ones are the individuals. The emotive ones are the case studies. The general, where everybody's cost of living is going up and everybody's standard of living is coming down. Those are the things which broadly need you need to keep an eye on. Otherwise, your whole society, the civilian part of it, goes, the civilized part is what I really want to say, it goes south. The Daily Telegraph. The UK would help Nordic nations fight the Russians. Now, Finland particularly is under threat, always has been, and Sweden, because they border on the old Soviet Union. And they are always vulnerable to attack from that country. And the Russians have made noises about attacking all sorts of people, including ourselves, I may say. If in fact any of this was put into reality, then some action needs to be taken. And what the Prime Minister has said is we will go to the aid of Finland and or Sweden if they are attacked by the Russians, which would bring us into direct conflict with Russia, and therefore we would enter the war in a real sense. World War III would certainly be well underway. But that's the promise and the pledge that the Prime Minister has made to the Nordic countries, and he offers to do these things. Let's see. Yes, that the Daily Telegraph is. They rather cleverly, they've given a photograph of Boris Johnson rowing the Swedish Prime Minister across a fjord or a lake in Sweden. UK troops will defend Scandinavia from Putin, says the Times. So the pledge is there. And of course, the first person to pick up on that will be Mr. Putin himself. I haven't seen his reaction to this, but his reaction has been, you interfere in this war, Western nations, you interfere, and you will be a target. And our rockets are now capable of A, hitting your homeland, reaching it, and B, will carry a nuclear warhead. So you please yourself. I think that, I am accused of being a warmonger, but knowing a little bit about Russia, only a little bit, but a little bit about Putin, only a little bit, but he is the sort of man that would resist breaking his word because he would see it as a weakness. So if he says that he's going to pound us with a rocket, he will. And I think we have to take that seriously in everything that we do from now on. The Guardian revealed carbon bombs set to trigger a climate catastrophe. These aren't bombs that you drop on cities or launch on rockets. What the paper is talking about is that there are now massive projects being for gas companies and oil companies being ramped up because of the current crisis that will actually damage the environment and damage it for years and years and years and years to come. And it is saying, hey, look, steady on. It may seem a sense a knee-jerk reaction to implement some of these massive projects, but they are going to destroy the environment, and there's nothing much you can do about it once you've destroyed it. The Financial Times is Brussels threatens retaliation if Northern Ireland Protocol is ditched. Basically, the British government has said it's going to rip up the Northern Ireland, the Brexit agreement on Northern Ireland, and be done with it. And what Brussels is saying is, you do, and believe me, we can come back at you with a few hammers of our own, and I'm sure that they can. So nobody really wants that sort of confrontation. The sort of confrontation that, unfortunately, Northern Ireland, because of its unique character, triggers frequently, and I'm afraid that that's the case. So the Sun is the bride of a monster. The Sun's front page reports that serial killer Levi Belfield, who murdered Millie Dowler, is due to get named to get married in prison. And the paper says the news has sparked outrage. I can't think why. He wants to get married, and there's somebody daft enough to marry him. Bearing in mind he's not going to come out of prison for quite a long time. Let them get on with it. I can't understand why there would be outrage at that. My lovely Daily Star, Wags at war. It carries on with the Wag war. I tried to leak a story about a footballer, says the footballer's wife, who denies leaking stories on footballers' wives. Well, this is the thing between Vardy, Mrs. Vardy, and Mrs. Rooney over libel. It got pretty vicious. She said this, they said that, and in the end, it's ended up in a libel lawsuit. Boy, is it? I mean, if you like the gossipy type things, it would be front page, I suppose, with papers like the Star for quite some time. And I'm afraid we just have to accept that it's going to be a bit daft. Oh my goodness me! My goodness me! Anyway, those are the headlines, the front pages of the papers, which give us a snapshot of what's going on in the world. The war in Ukraine still continues to bother me. Now, it sometimes doesn't bother other people. It's a bit laissez-faire. It's a war that's going on somewhere else, isn't it? But we are skating very close on thin ice if we actually ignore it and don't plan for the remote possibility. And it's not that remote, actually, but let's call it that for the moment, the remote possibility that we will be going to war. Because we could easily find ourselves in that situation. Let's calm it down with my usual visit to Grange Park. I just love this moment when we go into Grange Park. It's such a calming place. It's the Notts Garden. There is my summer office. I often go and hunker down there. It's got a windbreak, the sun shining on it. It's calm and very quiet because a lot of people don't know that it's there. But it's not a section of the park for children to run around in. So it's quite pleasant if you want to go and do some quiet work or some contemplation or whatever. But here is the park generally. And here's my other favorite one.
Busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time.
Well, there we are. It's busy doing nothing, and that's what it appears that we're busy doing. I must actually look and see whether we haven't got a comment. But I always amuses me that little ditty, and it was one that we very, very ungraciously, very naughtily used to sing whenever we saw anyone from the EU or from the United Nations when we were on our missions in the Balkans, particularly Kosovo. And it was very naughty of us. We were very naughty people, and we used to poke fun at them. The fact of the matter is that if we actually want to take a look at overseas aid, and it has been very controversial, and of course a lot of people say you can't cut overseas aid because we need the influence, and people need a leg up, and as a civilized nation. Well, they're all very, very, very true. The thing is that the appointments are made by broadly the civil service, so they make them in their image. And when they go out to these various countries and so on, they bear no resemblance to what's needed. Now, I don't have the skill, nor for that matter, the understanding. I mean, I sat with, it's not just us, the Americans are the same. I sat with an American, and I had two of my very, very bright staff with me, and they were very bright. And I said quite publicly, these two are the future of this country. And indeed, it turned out to be true, because we're talking now about the turn of the century when I was in Kosovo, and they both those people have turned out to be quite spectacular in leading their country and taken very important roles. But anyway, that's beside the point. But he said, they can never do anything. They'll never do anything. They're just, he didn't quite say, but ignorant people sitting around and basking in the fact that we're giving them lots of money and our expertise. No, I did find out what the bugger did. But anyway, it was sad that sort of attitude prevailed, but it did amongst a lot of. Oops. The morning sneeze. It is an attitude that prevails amongst a lot of people who go out, supposedly, to lend their expertise, to lend our democratic principles, to try hard to steer local people into what we consider to be the right way of life. We send all the wrong people. And it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. Because we're not talking to idiots. We're talking to people who have been through a very bad time. And yes, some of their attitudes would be strange and upsetting to us. I'll give you an example of where the press decided, for whatever reason, and it appeared really that it was that this lady, as the chief executive of the local mobile phone company, had made a profit. And to them, because they were coming out of a communist background, profit meant corruption. So they decided that she was corrupt. And they went after her with all sorts of stories without any substantiation. And when I actually called them together and said, now, look, you just can't do this. Well, what's your source? But everybody knows. That was their source. And that was the sort of journalism that you'd got. So you'd be grateful that we don't actually tolerate that sort of journalism in this country. Everybody knows. That is no reason whatsoever to hand out libelous comment. The funny thing is that it had such an effect on the United Nations. They sent in the French financial unit, which in itself was a bit of a joke, because it's the one people you wouldn't want to be investigated by the French financial unit is they didn't have a clue. They would come to all sorts of conclusions. But the whole idea of us pouring lots of money into overseas aid and then sending people, and in fact, the system that appoints the groups that handle these things is also flawed. It's typical. What happens is that a few people get in on the ground floor, and then they decide that that's the way that everything should be done. And so government, desperate to not rock the boat, accepts the fact that, okay, this seems to have worked with these people. And then they implement it. There's no thinking gone into overseas aid. None at all. It's there's the money. Let's have a few people. I actually had a conversation with some people from the Foreign Office, and it was about a situation in the Balkans, and I consider to be something of a Balkan expert, having spent a lot of time there. And we had the conversation, and I simply did not know what they were saying. I didn't know what they were talking about. So as a consequence, I couldn't respond to it. And if I did say, now, hang on, here's the situation on the ground, it's, no. It's a farce, an absolute farce. And like everything else in governance at the moment, it needs reform. So no, I am not against overseas aid. What I am against is wasting the money by sending people out there who haven't a clue what it is that they're supposed to be doing, and who actually run around playing the EU game of this is a form, fill it in. I wanted to send out a press release. I prepared the press release and got it ready, but as one does, it needed to be shown to the EU chief or at least part of his department. You can't do this, you can't do this, because it's not on the right form. There is a form that you use to send out a press release. Oh, all right. Give me the form. The form was an invitation to a press party. That's what it was. And I pointed this out. I said, you can't send out a press release on this. Oh, but Brussels says that we must, and therefore we must. There's no critical thinking, no reviewing of what the thing said and how idiotic it made everybody look. No. So that's my downbeat side on overseas aid, and I see no reason why we shouldn't just postpone it or cancel it for a while until such time as this is worked out, and that we get people there on the ground who know what they're doing, who win the confidence of the local populace, and who can actually take things forward and see a half-decent result. Because the results aren't half-decent. In fact, far from it. And of course, you know what the inevitable consequence of having people wandering around not knowing what they're doing is corruption at the highest level. Where in one of the missions that I undertook in that country, there were people who had started with a tin of baked beans and a back room, who were driving Mercs, wearing Armani suits, and traveling right across the continent for one reason or another. All on the money they were getting. Strange. And not only that, but there was a gentleman at the American embassy who had actually pinpointed what was going on. And he alerted his superiors and alerted just about everybody, and nobody was willing to do anything about it. So that's where your money's going with overseas aid. And that's the thing that needs looking at, not the amount that we're giving, or even to the causes we're giving them to. But why send an ice cream man to look at how to renovate a baked beans plant? It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Oh, there. That was a nice rant, wasn't it, to start off the day? Right. Well, what's the time? Oh, it's 3 minutes past 9. And there's Andrew, our wonderful barber from Grizzlies on Market Street. And he's just sent me a little note saying, I'm running behind. And it's okay, because these people at the moment come in out of the goodness of their heart and the belief that they should be assisting in passing this to you, the general public. So God bless them. God bless them indeed. And he may or may not be here, but well done, Andrew. At least he let me know that he's running a bit behind this morning. So we perhaps we'll see him, and perhaps we won't. But it'll be very nice if we do, because he's got a wonderful sense of humor. He runs a very, very good barber shop. It's more like a social center than a barber shop. I go down there just for a little bit of R&R. And he's not averse to popping a little bit of Jack Daniels into the coffee. Oh, yes, that's not a bad morning at all. Okay, then where were we? Yes, we were discussing overseas aid and my view on it, my take on it. And I think that these are areas where we all crib about the cost, but we don't bother to see how we're spending it and what might be done to make it so effective that nobody cares what the cost is. Now, shall we? We'll take. Yes, this is what really we've got to worry about this coming year. This is where we would expect to be celebrating next month and in the lead up to it with all sorts of interesting things. So let's just review it ourselves and remind ourselves what this year of 2022. Miserable and mean though it is all about. Right, those are the years 1950 to 1960, and a lot took place in those years. We started off still in the grip of post-war Britain, rationing. Sweets particularly were on ration. Coal was on ration. Some clothing was on ration. And as we went through, so there were defining periods in that decade, not least of which was the coronation, which lifted everybody's spirits. But also, we saw Billy Wright there. England won the World Cup. My God, I mean, it's the only time we've done it, and we've remembered it still. Is 100 years later, it's going to be remembered as the year we won the World Cup. Never managed it again. But there were other defining moments. Steam started to go out of fashion. Steam trains. The energy sector was changing. The ability to travel overseas, and it was in that decade that people like Freddie Laker first started to see that people would like sand, sea, and sangria if they could afford it, and started the cheap holiday package. So there were lots of things that changed, some for the good, some for the bad. It was also the decade in which the unions started to get a grip and made life in the 1970s a complete utter misery. So once again, good, bad, and indifferent. The good, the bad, the ugly. And that, in some ways, is what we're celebrating, the early part of our Queen's reign. And most people didn't live through it. And many other people don't remember it particularly. But it was also a time of conquers, of hide and seek, of children being able to go out onto the streets without fear. It was an era in which crime was contained, and many other good things emanated, not least of which is the food wasn't as tasty. Herbs and spices and curries and so on and so forth were virtually unknown. But the diet was as healthy as we have ever had in this country, both in quantity and quality and variety. And it looks as if perhaps with the present situation, the cost of living problem, that we may well find that we're going to have to revisit. It may well be that we're going to turn ourselves back into a healthy nation, because the headline this morning is "The poor can't cook," says an MP. What's his name again? E. Anderson. Oh, that's started a storm. But the fact of the matter is, it's quite true. You look at some of the situation comedies. What are they doing? They're sitting on their fat backsides on a settee, watching TV, and what are they eating? Pizza or hamburgers, right? Well, yes, you can cook a hamburger, I suppose, at home, but generally speaking, you order them in. You order a pizza in, or all you do is you pop it into the microwave. We are a nation that can't cook, and that is borne out by a lot of chefs and experts. And actually, you go into a lot of restaurants now. I mean, there are restaurants which advertise themselves as Italian restaurants. And what it means is that they've got pizza and pasta. A good Italian restaurant really, really can turn out some superb dishes. I have to confess that when I worked at Reuters, we were on Gray's Inn Road in London, and right next door, which has gone now, unfortunately, but there was a restaurant called Saraceno. And the owner, Onofrio, took us all to his heart. We were his children, and he would make whatever we wanted. And he would introduce us to new foods and new cheeses and new ideas, as well as traditional stuff. Nary a pizza or a pasta in sight. Those were good Italian restaurants. But to be quite honest with you, I believe that much of the Italian restaurants nowadays have got so used to that's where the money is, that in fact all they are is big junk food joints. Tarted up sometimes so that you pay 3 times more of a pizza than it's worth. Anyway, this poor Tory has said the poor can't cook. Perhaps a poor choice of poor. But actually, of course, is what you have in the kitchen depends upon your economic circumstance. It makes sense. So he said, the poor are junk food addicts. And there's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of truth in that. And I can see sneaking in here at the back is Andrew, who said, forgive me, I'm running behind this morning, and nobody has to forgive Andrew. Believe me, he is one of the...
Yeah.
Are you going to come there? Okay. Yeah. That makes it a little easier to move the gubbins. So here we go. And here he is Andrew Sloan. And one of the projects that we've got on between us, mostly his, but I keep interfering, is to name the little area down by the Needlemakers and where Grizzly's barbershop is to name it because it actually is almost a little area like Soho in Lewes. But the most imaginative thing that we've come up with so far is Little Lewis, which is that's not very good, not very inspiring, is it?
It's in those sort of areas, isn't it? Because it's obviously we've got the lovely opticians there, we've got Patch, we've got the needle makers and all the independent things and shops and cafe in there, and we've got the flea market. So it's almost crying out. Like you've got the South Lanes and Bryant's, all the jewellery shops and stuff. They've got the North Lanes, which are known for vintage things and nice cafes and trendy. So it's almost like it's crying out to grow from what it is to be a a certain area. So
Yes, I agree.
Artisan quarter sounds too arty, or artist quarter sounds a bit pretentious. Of course, there's a Star Gallery as well. One of my clients who is an artist, he's got his studio stuff in there. So it's almost like maybe we all need to get together, I suppose, all those businesses, and sort of think of something. If we start calling it that, then it might suddenly get
catch
adapted.
on. Yeah,
If we just take it upon ourselves, just go, so it's in people's terminology.
Well, if we've got anybody in there who can make a sign, as your idea was, let's put up a sign. Find a name and put up a sign, and then get people calling it that. And by the time that the council actually find out, because they're all in Eastbourne, so they'll never know.
Well, they're working from home watching Loose Women.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can get away with it for quite a long time without planning permission.
I think the way the times are at the moment, I just think it's all so crazy, isn't it? I just think, right, okay, we have to sort of make this area work for us. So then because years ago, the whole pass and trade thing used to be people walking about, but we need to get people to the area. So people just Google things, don't they? Or it comes across, or people put things in their social media, so it slips through that way, or sort of word of mouth. So because we've had a couple of new clients this week who are from Lewes, and whereabouts are you? So you try to explain. Oh, right, do you know where the Needle Makers is? Do you know where the flea market is? No. Market Street, no. The War Memorial, I think so. Cafe Nero, oh yeah. And you just think, oh my God. And you're like, you're from Lewes. How do you not know?
Well, I mean, because we've got a huge amount of chattering classes here now, haven't we? Is all they do is they go and they gossip. And where do they go? They go to Cafe Nero. It's sad but true.
Which I don't think.
Incidentally, is our good friend Liza Page has got a book for you on David Icke.
Oh, yeah.
And she misunderstood where you were, and apparently she got lost on Fisher Street and went into a barber's there and sort of said, "Hello, this is who I am, and I've got this book for you." And they looked at her stunned. They had no idea what she was talking about. She thought she was talking to you. Right, yeah. So it's on its way, my boy. It's on its way. But there you go. I think that's very good. And let's start a little competition, and not a formal one, but if you're discussing with your neighbour about Lewes, see if you can come up with a name and drop it into Grizzlies, a name for that little area.
It's on Market Street, isn't it? So,
yes.
Because when I was first thinking of a name, there's like in San Francisco, the main street is called Market Street. So there's a Barbers on there called Barbers on Market. So they'd say, oh, no, it's the organic shop on Market. So there's something like that, isn't it? Like in Soho, you've got in like in New York, it's all those sort of areas, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's that type of thing. It'd be good to call it some sort of.
That's right. I've just forgotten the name, but strangely enough, there is also a similar thing in Moscow.
Right.
It's something like Absar or Absar or something sort. But it's just a one name, and the stores are on that particular.
Well, of course, we have the Friday market as well.
Yes, that's right. It's a very vital little part of Lewes.
£100 for a pork pie, but. I just remortgage my house before I come buy some bread. But so there is that. So I think we just need to think of something. And all the businesses, I need to do it. It's time, isn't it? On top of work and life and dogs and everything else, it's just going right. Okay, so I should go around to all the businesses and say, look, let's all get together of an afternoon or an evening, and let's just talk about this. Yeah. So join a collective. Businesses, I suppose.
I think one of the emotive words which is used elsewhere in the world is a quarter, isn't it?
Yes, I like
the
that.
Something quarter.
Sounds very Lewes, but that seems to the market quarter. I don't know. It's not quite arty enough, but it needs to be. Yeah, that's something like. And then I can almost see. Like I always said to that tourist information. If there was that Carnaby Street thing across the street.
Exactly, yeah.
But or those I can see like almost like when you go to America, 3 billboards outside Missouri or whatever. There's those. You have it sometimes if you're going into Devon. You're Narrington, Devon. You're Narrington, Dorset. There's those signs, isn't there? It's almost like just as on that left there, by the Needlemakers, you need something that go. You're now entering this, the the market quarter
Yes.
or something.
Well, we haven't used it for a little bit, and I must dig into the files and get it back, because what we called was those people who were in our influence, as it were, as Mirador Television. We called it Mirador Country. You're now entering Mirador Country. So it's that sort of defining word that we need.
We need to workshop it.
Yeah.
We need
Now,
to
so that you know what you're talking about, when you get together and you discuss what the name should be, drop in to Grizzly's Barbershop, very identifiable on Market Street, and say, Andrew, I've got a name, right? And let him know what your ideas for a name. Now, secondly, whether you want your hair cut or not is quite beside the point, because you will be entering into what I always think of as a sort of Cinderella world, a magic world when you enter into that shop, because it's not just a barber's, it's a social center. There are as many people in there having a chat, having a cup of coffee, or sometimes a beer, as there are getting their hair cut. I mean, you've established a wonderful atmosphere there, and everybody just goes in to have a good time.
It's nice that people feel they can drop in.
Absolutely. So when you thought up your name, what you do is you just drop by the shop, and you just say to Andrew or to Ollie, who is the other chap there, and occasionally Nick, but mostly Andrew or Ollie, and you say, hey chaps, we've come up with an idea for a name, and they will gratefully receive it, will you not? Yeah. We'll have to think of it for some sort of reward.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's it. You see, there will be. Yeah, but it's getting everybody else to agree, isn't it? So getting all the other businesses to get on board.
It's sort of a leadership, isn't it? If you say something long enough, then the name sticks. I mean, when I first chose Mirador, I couldn't remember it. But the more I said it, the more I felt comfortable with it. And now you don't have to say Mirador Television. You can say Mirador to people, and they know exactly what you're talking about. So I think a name with time accumulates a character.
I just think it might be worth having it's easier said than done, isn't it? But having a meeting with I suppose if we get the businesses together and come up with some sort of identity, collective identity in a way, and then you'd have a meeting with the council and with the tourist information to say, look, you've got to invest. Everybody pays all their rates, business rates and things. You've got to invest in independent shops, especially more now than ever, because of rising costs and things. And, if you choose to take your business to someone local, you're supporting that business, they can pay their bills and all that type of stuff, rather than just go to the big chains all the time.
Can I've just been having a go at overseas aid and saying that I'm not against overseas aid. What I'm against is the way that it's applied. The people we send out to implement these projects are totally and utterly bloody useless. They don't understand the issues. They don't understand overseas dealing with overseas people or anything. Anyway, but one of the things that you will wait forever if you decide to go the planning route or to go to the council is you will wait forever. The best thing is to get a name going, get an idea, because nobody can stop you using a name. They can stop you putting up a sign, I suppose, but nobody can stop you using the name.
I suppose things
so
like
get it going, then go to the council.
I suppose things like as well, like it's a nicknamey thing actually. So yeah, but you could create something on, like you do a business on Google My Business. You could create a business thing and call it, you could create a page like I do with the barbershop, I suppose, which goes on Google that's about, say the market quarter or whatever. And you would list all those businesses as part of that. And all the photos and all the updates on that Google business, be all the businesses, so everyone have their own little thing. So when actually people Google stuff and then their business, or say sourdough near me or barbers near me, that would then probably show up. So then it would bring them into an area.
Absolutely.
So that's a way of creating it actually, rather than, actually we could do it ourselves.
Probably. Yes. Well, I mean, you can start it yourself.
Yeah, create a buzz first.
And some traders, of course, I rather think that you might find a little bit of resistance from the present High Street Traders Association. They don't like anybody interfering with.
Well, if they don't like it, they don't like it. I don't care.
Well done. That's exactly it.
I just think this day and age, That's it. I just think people have to be stronger, and just if people you meet resistance and you go.
We talk about the freedom of our societies in the West, and we're not free at all. We're subject to all these little groups who think that they know best, from pulling down statues to telling you what you can't or you can't do. I mean, it's absolute rubbish. Let us be free. All men, what's that Elgar thing? All men are free. March to victory with me. Yeah.
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 So
I would sing it, but that'd put anybody off.
What's that headline? I'm sure you talked about Tory, the poor can't cook.
Ah, right, yes.
I've got a guy who runs one of the food banks in Brighton.
Right. Fine. Well, basically, this poor Conservative MP has put his foot in it by misusing words, and I've had a go this morning because I've said no. He's telling the truth. What he says is that, where we're talking about having to retrench because of the cost of living and so on and so forth. And he said the poor can't cook. And he's absolutely right. Most of them bring in pizza or what's the other thing? A hamburger. But the interesting thing is, Andrew, I quite often cautious about making a statement unless I've had some personal experience. And 2 or 3 years ago, we were in negotiations with a chef who had written a book, and we were going to do a series on it. Now, in those days, the clunky nature of television equipment meant that we actually would have bitten off more than we could chew. But what his books were about is that ladies and young women of 20, 21, 22 can't cook. And they panic when their sort of new mother-in-law is going to come, because they weren't taken into the kitchen the way that the generation before were and shown by mother how to cook. They have no idea. So even simple things like poached eggs, he was putting in his book because they don't know how to do it. Well, he was doing that on research. Yeah?
Well, that's been around for years. There's a brilliant person called Jack Monroe, who's tremendous. So there's a few points here. So when lockdown stopped, I was brought up with nothing. So we barely had any money. So if I'd say to my mum, "What's for tea?" she'd say, "If there's food there, you can have it." Which basically means if there's food in, you can eat it. If there's not, then you can't.
Yeah.
So stuff would be made out of nothing, and then so we were taught to cook because a lot of them. My mum had, 2 jobs, and she had to. Well, she had a job, estate agent, and she had to clean, and she was an Avon lady. So they were never around, so we had to cook a lot. So I learned to cook from quite an early age, I suppose, and had to. And then when lockdown happened, and we finished work on a Saturday, and then we had no income, what I had in the freezer and the cupboards and the fridge, I then had to create out of nothing for our dinner at home because I had no money to go buy shopping and stuff. So the amount of meals I'd come home and I'd say to John, right, we're having blah 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 tonight, which is a bit of a made up meal and a dinner, and he'd be like, it's fine, So I would be able to cook anything from anything. Jack Monroe does a great book and a page and a website and stuff about basically things that you can buy, 36p new potatoes or whatever it is, so you can basically, because she was a single parent family and had to cook out of a benefit out of nothing, so I think a partner, something happened, but so it's not a poor thing, is it? I don't know what they mean by this. I haven't read the article. I don't know. Yeah. But coming from not much money, and then when lockdown stopped and our income stopped, I found that really offensive. But because we can cook, I can cook. That's the thing. The only thing I worry about with having money is I can make something out of nothing, but I can't necessarily get the money to pay bills if you've got no income coming, can you? Yeah. You can create stuff out of. You can make your own sauces, get some veg and stuff, and you can create your own things from nothing.
Well, you see, you and I, we often disagree, but because we like one another, we don't mind disagreeing. But I would say that the reflection of junk food places is that a lot of...
We were saying this yesterday, that the rise in bills and all this stuff, and we're all petrified and it's ridiculous, isn't it? And the cost of things and this. I deal with my mortgage advisor yesterday saying, I don't know what to do because our deal doesn't run out till next February, but the interest rates are going up. Is it easier to pay early exit fees to secure a deal now or what? And then trying to weigh that up. And no one seems to know, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've said this about the last week or so. There's so much Deliveroo, KFC junk food advertising at the moment, isn't there? And I see them around all the time. The cyclists. I'm thinking, how can people afford to be spending 20, 30? Occasionally you think, I mean, Ollie would say, oh, should we share a pizza today for a bit of lunch? And you go, I know it's only £7.50 from the fabulous Rustico, but you think that's still £7.50. Or, you know, I've been doing these shakes that we bought, those meal replacement shakes ages ago. So rather than paying for dinner or buying another loaf of bread to make sandwiches, I've been using them up. I know it sounds, my husband always says like this. And I go, what's that? And he goes, it's the world's smallest violin. But, you know, and then, so I went and I bought a panini the other day, and it was like £4.60. I thought, this is shocking. You know, I'm just trying to have no money, but I spent £4.50 on a panini.
Absolutely,
but actually, I was, you know, thought, God, I'd never do that anymore. And it was quite nice. But yeah, there's so much of these. People are buying the pizzas, the junk, and it's all £20, £30 a time, isn't it?
But of course, actually, I was talking to another expert who points out that we don't have any decent restaurants in Lewes. We've got lots of good pubs. The standard of the pubs is quite high, but I mean, it is pub food. We don't have a decent restaurant, and mainly it's because there's no demand for it.
Yeah, it's funny how you don't have, like in Brighton, we've got I can't remember what it's called now, but it's is it a vegan pizza restaurant? Yeah, obviously there's loads of places, and then we've got loads of vegetarian cafes and good vegetarian restaurants. So that's quite. Yeah, I know we've got the vegan.
The restaurants in Brighton are actually very good.
Actually, Lewes, you think there could be some good.
Yes,
high end.
Yeah, but there's no real demand for it. Would you believe?
But then again, who can afford to be eating out now?
Well, exactly. I mean, now, I mean, this is where the chap is right in the sense that everybody's been so used to being able to go down to have and get whatever you want off the high street. Let's go and get fish and chips. Let's go and get a Chinese takeaway and so on. And all these things now are going to be very expensive. I mean, do you know in the pub, because I know you don't dine in pubs, you're a man of taste and distinction, but do you know what the average price of a ploughman's is in the pub now?
Oh, God, I would say £12, £13. Probably.
Well, you're not far off. I mean, it's a tenner.
Oh, okay.
It was just a little while ago. But a tenner for a bit of cheese, a crust of bread, and a pickled onion. I mean, that's outrageous.
But is it because every individual thing is going up, stuff of cost and everything? I know it sounds a little bit. I popped into Lidl because the other night I fancied I did a Sunday roast, and then in the evening we just going to have some soup. I popped into Lidl just to buy some coleslaw because I was craving cheese and coleslaw, and it was 95p in Lidl. 95p for coleslaw. I think it's disgusting. I think it's about 40p.
Yeah, that's right.
95p for coleslaw in Lidl. Go to Lidl. Go to Lidl. Why am I doing that again? I'll tell you.
No, I mean, I will say this: that an overall bill. I used to shop at Aldi, and overall, you save about 30% on your shopping bill from anywhere else. But there are also things that you can't get. And things that are overpriced simply because they're not the usual things that their type of clientele.
Well, we eat a lot of corn, vegetarian stuff. So as to do like 4 for £6, so you can get like a corn mince, corn sausages, corn pieces, corn meatballs, say, and they're all quite low in fat. So that's quite good. So that's 4 meal things for 2 people for £6.
Yeah, that's not bad.
You know, whereas Lidl and Aldi they just might do a couple of basic things, but we'll shop on Asda's.
Well, what we've got to do is we've got to go into the hedgerows and we've got to look for elderflower, elderberries, nettles, and all those things which make good, sustainable foods, but nobody thinks much about making anymore. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Guess what, Mr. Andrew? We are now, as of this moment, 5 minutes over our running time.
Well,
so I'm going to, I don't know how long you can stay, but
go to work now.
You've got to go to work. Well, I am going to stretch it a moment or so because I always give Andrew, because he is, well, there are 2 things. First of all, he is in a unique position because he talks to people in the barber's chair and gets a feel for what the population broadly is talking about. But secondly, he's also a very astute guy and can zero in on things that would escape me and escape a lot of other people. So here is your 2 or 3 minutes, Andrew.
Oh God, what are people talking about at the moment? Okay. So someone won 110 million pounds on the lottery the other day.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So that's ridiculous. And
unless you're the winner.
somebody else that got told who had a relative has just managed to sell some shares and they came into 110 million pounds. And my thing back from that is people using food banks. How this divide, and then the whole mortgage thing, and Martin Lewis sending emails about check your rates, lock into this now. Oh my God, the whole stress of this at the moment. I don't understand. And then the elections and Ukraine and the hotel bills that we pay every day is £7 million for refugees. That was the official statistics fact that came through. And I just think a lot of money being spent everywhere. And meanwhile, the normal people and people
are suffering.
We're really suffering.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. How is this possible? And wasn't it Shell and BP announced their profits and said about the windfall tax, but they're not going to do it? And I don't understand. How is this not? I don't know what the next step is. So
we live in a world. I think we should use it is Alice through the looking glass.
Someone said to me, a client said to me the other day, it stuck with me. He said, the only power we have is how we spend our money. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So basically, it's the thing of saying, right, okay, let's go through. It's almost you want to say to everybody, you want to say like a life coach in a way, and you go, right, okay, where'd you get your petrol? And they go, oh, I'll get it from Esso thing, right? Well, Esso don't pay this or whatever. So there's an independent garage that's literally just 5 minutes away. Just stop in Lewis. Go to that, get your petrol from there. It might be a penny dearer. Get your petrol from there. That will support that. And then you could suddenly, and then go, don't use Amazon. So what you use to go to find your local store, go to your local store to do that. Certain other companies that don't pay taxes, certain coffee shops and things, should we say, certain supermarkets. So go, I won't go there. So put your money elsewhere. So if we don't spend our money in those places, they're not getting those profits.
Yes, that's right.
So you boycott in a way. You say, so that's what we can do. How we spend our money. That's the only power we seem to have.
Actually, that was very astute, and it's very astute of you to pick that up, because there is a truism there. The big problem, of course, is that not everybody, people don't think alike. So you'll find some people will spend their money on one area and others will boycott it and so on and so forth. So, of course, that diffuses the power.
But if you give people, isn't it knowledge, education, knowledge is power, etc., etc., etc. So if people are aware of that and say, okay, where do you get petrol from? Where do you get your milk from? Where do you get your standard things? Then hopefully they would tell someone else. They would tell someone else. So before you know it, the power of the people, it's that type of thing. Isn't it? Trying to say to somebody, cancel your social media. It's all a load of rubbish. There's algorithms and it's data and they're tracking you, etc., etc., etc. And stop scrolling on your phone. Stop, because we're just becoming consumers. It's quite, I'm not on social media. The shop is on Instagram, so we just use that to post reviews and things. But you've got to do your bit. We all got to do our bit. But it's going to take a little bit of, isn't it? Netflix are putting up their thing to £10 a month. So I'm going to cancel my Netflix when they do that as well. So I'm not going to do it. Because actually, Lewis is sounding quite old. We've been watching a lot of stuff on the BBC iPlayer. And I know you pay a TV license, but they do the radio and programs and lots of great stuff,
Yeah.
But and Channel 4, All 4, and Fire on Demand and stuff. So there's lots of documentaries or films, loads more stuff on iPlayer than I thought. And All 4 is brilliant. So they've got a big bank of stuff. So
there is a big bank of stuff.
Yeah,
you're quite right.
So Amazon Prime, I'm not on Amazon Prime anyway, but that Prime TV, so cancel that subscription.
Yeah.
Cancel, do you really need something like tomorrow? Can you not plan? Think a little bit more maybe. And cancel their subscriptions.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm remembering some of the quality stuff that was made in the years that we just said, in the 1950s and in the 1960s. some of those movies were really terrific
Hitchcock,
movies.
39 Steps,
Yeah,
classic film. You know.
Absolutely,
You know,
yeah.
Brighton
I
Rock.
mean, one of
They're all on there.
absolutely. And there is a one channel called Talking Pictures, and they come up with some of the most esoteric
It's
old movies,
quite
but
bad
they're just
quality,
great.
though, isn't
Yeah.
it? I've watched. I think they
Yes,
showed Sunset Boulevard on there.
Do they? Yeah.
So there's some great ones on that. I know.
Well, we're out of time, and I'm really sad because I've got him in full flow, and that's the way I like to capture him. But anyway, he will be back, and pretty soon we are going to have Andrew's own program as how to look after your hair, and then eventually we will get around to what the barber heard. So we've got great plans for Andrew, and he's bought into them. It's just a question of us as we come struggling out of lockdown to get some of these things implemented. But we're really looking forward to that, Andrew. As I said to somebody the other day, he's great telly, and you are intriguing, and we mustn't hide you away. No matter what we call the quarter in which your shop is at the moment, we can't hide you away. Got to have you on view.
Oh.
Toodle pip.